Many people believe that the United Nations, if it ever had any credibility in the first place, has lost it, both historically and today. Many nations, especially those in the developing world, believe that rich nations like the United States, Britain, France, and others dominate this purported global organization that is meant to assist all of its members. The UN is seen by African leaders in particular as a means of sustaining neo-colonialism on the continent. A total revamp is necessary to bring about significant change and return the UN to its original intent, one that actually advances the agenda of a select few, not the interests of the people it represents. The South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Naledi Pandor, is one prominent person who has spoken out on this issue. In an open discussion about the state of affairs in the Middle East, Pandor recently participated in a high-level debate. We think a comprehensive reform of the UN system is necessary to ensure that the UN Security Council is representative of the current global power dynamics and democratic. It is intolerable that 5 countries, among the most problematic in the world and the root of many of the issues I address today, continue to have disproportionate decision-making authority on the Security Council almost 8 decades after the organization's founding. I don't belong on the United Nations Security Council. One of the 6 main organs of the UN, the Security Council, is the subject of this discussion. Maintaining international peace and security, proposing new UN members to the General Assembly, and supporting any changes to the UN Charter are among its main duties. Permanent and non-permanent members make up the 2 groups of members of the Security Council. France, the United States, China, the United Kingdom, and Russia are the 5 permanent members. 10 non-permanent members are chosen for 2-year terms by the General Assembly. Albania, Brazil, Ecuador, Gabon, Ghana, Japan, Malta, Mozambique, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates are now among these members. At any given moment, there are 15 members of the Security Council. Importantly, each of the 5 permanent members has the ability to veto a resolution, meaning that even if it has garnered the required majority of votes, 9 out of 15, it cannot be adopted by the Security Council. No matter how much support a resolution receives from other members, it will fail if any of the P5 members oppose it. In order to guarantee that powerful nations have a say in international affairs, the veto power was instituted, keeping these major powers from allowing any one strong country or group of countries to control UN decisions without their approval. Pandora noted that some of the world's most troublesome nations are among the group's 5 members. These countries continue to fuel global turmoil and bear most of the blame for a number of global problems. This view is consistent with the worries expressed by African leaders at the 78th UN General Assembly debate, when they cited Western nations as the main challenges facing developing nations, and Africa specifically, as well as the international community. Burkina Faso's military chief Ibrahima Traore claimed that Western forces are not in Africa to maintain peace, but rather to plunder its resources. According to Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, the West purposefully creates disorder in Africa in order to fulfill their obscene agendas. Guinean Mamadi Doumbouya made the observation that the West subverts African democracy in order to further its own self-serving goals. Ghana's Nana Akufo-Addo denounced the UN's injustice, citing nations such as France in particular, the USA and the United Kingdom as troublesome countries. Naledi Pandor went on to call for a thorough reform of the UN organization. She emphasized the need of upholding decisions taken, especially by the UN Security Council, which is supposed to become more democratic. Pandor also drew attention to the problem of many UN resolutions that were approved by the UN General Assembly, but were frequently disregarded. She used the Israel-Palestine issue as an example to make her point. It should be emphasized that calls to have Israel withdraw from occupied lands to the lines of 1967 have been made repeatedly, but these choices have been continually ignored. Rather, there has been a worrisome growth in illegal settlements on Palestinian territory, which has resulted in the persecution of the Palestinian people and flagrant human rights crimes. Particularly Gaza has suffered greatly, with its citizens fighting to endure a 16-year siege, devoid of basic necessities including fuel, water, and electricity. This grave circumstance has endured, recurring year after year without sufficient resolution. Before we move on, if you think this video is interesting, kindly support us by giving it a like, sharing it, and becoming a subscriber. That being stated, let's move forward. Pander also attacked the West for placing unjustified pressure and unreasonable demands on developing countries. She made the observation that developed nations have continuously shifted responsibilities to those of us in the global South and have undoubtedly not lived up to their promises to the developing world. You have to deal with climate change, you have to give up coal use, emissions must be decreased. A, B, and C are requirements. They have grown. We have to stop moving forward and give in to their demands. I'm not advocating for the use of coal. Not that we shouldn't lower emissions, please understand that what I'm saying is that the kinds of expectations being placed on emerging nations without corresponding resource replies are, in fact, unrealistic. The result has been a growing challenge in pursuing sustainable development objectives. As we have seen this year, the UN Secretary General has stated that the world is truly regressing rather than progressing forward. These days, there is an increase in unemployment, inequality, and poverty. Ibrahima Traore, the leader of Burkina Faso, is another African leader who has publicly advocated for a reform of the United Nations. Speaking on behalf of Ibrahima Traore and the government of Burkina Faso, Bassel Mabazi sharply denounced Africa's lack of permanent membership or veto power in the Security Council during his statement at the 78th UN General Assembly on September 23, 2023. He called this a UN crime and denounced it as a state criminal. Global inequality, according to Bazier, is deliberate. He listed the real causes of coexistence as being the devilish spirit of dominance, the lies of governments, diplomatic hypocrisy, the frantic chase of power, greed for power, and the exploitation of man by man. The Sahel area is highlighted as the core of terrorism in the 2023 Global Terrorism Index, with more terrorism-related deaths in 2022 than in South Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa put together. In the midst of Burkina Faso's war against rebels, Bazi disclosed that countries such as Brazil, the USA, Belgium, and Canada, allegedly under the influence of France, were obstructing the delivery of military hardware bought with the nation's hard-earned money. He also underlined the stark contrast between the rhetoric and the real application of UN Charter principles, such as justice, equality, dignity, integrity, the right to self-determination, state sovereignty, the inviolability of territory, and respect for international law, pointing out that many speeches are delivered each year that contain promises and commitments. He cited examples of these principles being broken in Libya, the Sahel, particularly Niger, and the Russia-Ukraine crisis. He strongly denounced the military intervention that brought down the late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi and issued a warning that Niger might take a similar turn. He stressed that historical accuracy and intellectual honesty require us to really apologize to the Libyan people. What are your thoughts regarding the demands made by these African leaders for a revision of the UN Charter? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for observing. Kindly enable notifications, like, share, and subscribe to the channel to be notified whenever we post a new video.